shouldn't be nervous because all you guys are my friends, but it's still talking in front of people. But we are going to go ahead and start with the discussion Q&A part, first of all. So if anyone who's watching has questions, they can ask, and Kristen will answer, or anyone in the audience. Questions and will answer.
Hi, Jordan, were you able to share it?
What I'm sharing it now. Perfect.
Okay, I am Kristen Hope Mazzola. I'm a Florida-based author. I'm 28. I published for the first time when I was 25, just about 3.5 years ago with Crashing Back Down. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I will ramble for a very long time, so cut me off at any point, because I really don't know how to censor myself half of the time.
No headphones.
What?
No headphones.
Yeah. I started writing accidentally. I never had that inkling. A lot of people are like, I'm gonna be an author, and that's like their life goal. Unfortunately, I did not have that. And I was working for a job that I hated and just started writing short stories to pass the time because my boss was a jerk. And I needed to escape his entire everything that had to do with him. And that's when I wrote the first short stories for the Hysterics and then the Crashing series. I had no idea that I was writing books. I called Dana and told her, hey, I think I might have started a book, and she asked me to send her what I had written, and she said, please cut finish. And so I wrote from the middle to the end of Crashing Back Down, and then filled in the front part of it, and realized that I loved Walker, the main male, so much so I had to change the entire ending, and I gave him a book too. And that's how I started writing. Dana sat there with me for hours while I cried, trying to figure out how to give Walker a happily ever after, because originally he was going to be killed. So I couldn't kill off my favorite character, and that's how it happened. It was almost a mistake, like it was a complete fluke. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to figure out how to publish. I'm going to research how to get an editor. I went through 5 editors before I actually had my book edited to the point where it should have been published, but I had already published it for about 6 months before I figured out that it was terribly edited. But it's growing pains, I guess. So that's how I started. And now I'm here. I'm writing my 17th book right now.
Yeah. So do the ideas just come to you?
It's very sporadic how ideas come for me. My Shots on Goal series is what I'm working on now, which are very heavily hockey based. My dad is the reason why I loved hockey from the very beginning. I think I was like 5 years old, and my dad told me that a hockey player's name was Conine, and I got so excited because they called him Conine the Canine, and as a 5-year-old I was obsessed with animals, and you get me hooked immediately like that. And so I went to as many hockey games as my dad would take me to, and I had jerseys and like hats signed, and I even had this like plastic locker of like the Florida Panthers in my room. And I was at a hockey game a few years ago, and I was sitting right on the boards, and players got thrown just right into the boards in front of me, and I had a flash of exactly what I wanted for Hat Trick to be. And so about 3 years ago, I had the image for Hat Trick, and I finally published that in October. And then it snowballed into an entire series. It was supposed to be a standalone. I never thought that it was going to go any farther than that. And I'm writing the 5th book in that series right now. It was really incredible, and I'm so in love with my hockey players and their whole families. And Low Blow, which is what I'm going to read from, is actually my hockey player's younger brother, and he's a boxer. So I'm able to like spin off and have fun with it and have them completely interact in their own space. And my characters have their own world, so all of them interact in some way. From every book, they all interact in different ways. Are there any other questions? Anyone?
How much would you say your writing process has changed from like your first book to your 17th book?
Everything's changed. From how long it takes me to write. Crashing Back Down took me about 8 months to write that book. Falling Back Together, which is the second, took me about 6 months. I wrote Cherry Picked, which I don't have here today because it's a novella. That's about half of what most of my books are. I wrote that book in 3 days. So and that was 2 books ago. So it's just, everything's changed. How I think about my characters, how I know them, and now I date my characters. So when I start thinking about them, it's like meeting someone for the first time. And then I go through a dating process, and then by the end of the book, it's not a breakup because we end amicably, but I break up with them. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm done, and your book is over, and we're fine. It's like a love affair. Where before, my characters stuck with me for a lot longer, and I couldn't get over them, and I couldn't move on, and that's why the hysterics show up so often, especially in my original books, because I couldn't let them go. And now I'm a lot better about, like, okay, now it's time for the next thing, it's time for the next project, or the next characters, and stuff like that.
So one of the viewers, Elizabeth, wants to know if you could write with anyone, who would it be?
My original would have been Dawn Robertson, but I did that, so, which was phenomenal. She's an amazing person. Probably Amy Briggs, because she and I, we have very like-minded personalities, but she's 10 years older than me, so we have a very different viewpoint on a lot of life situations, and I think that we can meet in the middle in a very interesting way. So I think that she would be probably the next person that I would want to work with in that facet. And we're very like-minded business-wise, so I would be okay with her handling my money, which is a big part of it. So, anyone else?
Do you still work full-time?
I do still work full-time for that man sitting right back there. My dad is my boss. He's very flexible and understands what I call
He's not the jerk.
Oh, hey Dad, I have a deadline. I can't work today. Okay, Kristen. So I'm really lucky.
That's great.
Yeah, he's amazing. My parents are pretty phenomenal in that regard.
Is there a genre of books that you wish you could write? Like, oh, I really wish I could do fantasy or
I really wish I could write paranormal. Their world building is phenomenal. Those authors' imaginations are mind-altering. Maybe scary at times, but it's just not something that I could do. I could write fantasy because that is completely different. That's in an entire another world, so it would be completely out of my imagination. But for paranormal, you have to take rules from this society and incorporate them and then change them, and that's something that I don't think that I could do, which I just think is so amazing that they can.
I think someday you'll give it a shot.
Oh, maybe. I'll probably sit down, write like 10,000 words, just be like, this is crap, and just pass it along, but it'll be fun to at least explore it eventually if I do. Yeah. Okay, you first, then Jesse.
What's your favorite thing to do on release day?
Not look at Amazon. I avoid everything like the plague. Usually I have all of my posts set up and I'll like be lurking in the background, but yeah, I'm a big fan of pre-orders. All of my books go on pre-order because I don't want to have to worry about that like weird publishing game that happens with Amazon, because they're jerks sometimes and your book will be out 3 days early or it won't show up ever on release day. And so I'm just I pop a bottle of champagne and I'm just like, here's to me and here's to the book, and let me not worry about it, because what's done is done. It's already out in the atmosphere. It's already there. So I can't do anything more past sharing it and doing all the promotional things that my publicist makes me do, and she schedules me all of these crazy, like, I get basically about a month before release day, I get a schedule of all of the book blogs that I have to take over during that entire week, and I stare at it and I'm like, okay, how many different ways can I beg people to buy my book? Because I don't know how, like, literally I'm just like this person sitting on the other side of the computer saying, I just spent hours upon hours and tons of money, and please just make it worth it. But how do you do that without groveling? Because basically that's what we do. We literally sit there and like, please just like me. It's like this weird like popularity contest that we have in ourselves, because readers, they pick up a book because they want to read the book. They care about the author, obviously, in some small facet, but most of the time they see a book, they want to read it because of the cover. Mm-hmm. It's the cover first, then the synopsis, maybe, and then the author, maybe the ranking of that said book. Like, oh, everyone else is buying it, I'll buy it too, why not? But it's just, it's just this gamble that we go through, which is interesting.
How often, since you met me, do you sit there and think, maybe I should make my male love interest less like Jesse?
That has never happened to me in my entire writing career. Now that you have asked that question, I don't know. I really do like you though, so I might not kill you off. Maybe you'll get maimed in a car accident. I really like car accidents in my books, if anyone has noticed. It's a really easy way to either hurt somebody or kill someone off. There's only so many ways that fluke accidents can happen.
Here in Florida, that woman hit that 10-foot alligator on 75. Now there's a story for that.
There you go. You never know. Fluke accidents do happen.
So you talked about the cover, getting people to buy your books. Who does your covers?
I do my own.
Hey.
There's only a few that I have outsourced. The Crashing series, Crashing Back Down and Falling Back Together, their new covers I did outsource because I didn't have time to do them myself. And I literally sent them out at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I had them back by 8 p.m. that night, which was phenomenal. And then the Hysterics. I wrote the Hysterics. That was my third book. I wasn't comfortable making my own covers yet, so that cover was done by my cover artist who I originally used. But at that same time, I was writing Stupid Hearts, and Stupid Hearts' original cover, it has been recovered, which I did the second one as well, but Stupid Hearts' first cover was my first book that I covered myself. And that was in the beginning of 2015, and most of my covers I've done myself since then. Which it saves a lot of money. So good. Thank you very much. And I like having complete freedom because I know what I want them to look like, but mapping it out and explaining to someone else what they should look like for your characters doesn't always work out. I've been very fortunate. I do not have those horror stories, but some authors do have horror stories about fighting with their cover artists. No, my story should be in this direction, it should have these colors or that feel, and they completely come up with something that is not what they had in mind. Which sometimes is for their benefit, sometimes it's to their detriment. And I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I don't want to give that up. Just a little bit. And I can make everything match. So my teasers online, everything, any promo that you see, I've done all of that design work too. So everything is always the same fonts, the same covers, and I think it looks nicer. And you can see something, you're like, that's Kristen, because I know that that's designed for her stuff. So all of my stuff has the same feel, the same fonts, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Where's your favorite place to write? You have a
my bed.
spot. Yeah.
My bed. I mean, I have a Harry Potter blanket that I hide under. I literally drape it across my chest, and I have like dinosaur arms that like come out from under it to type on my keyboard. It has a Dumbledore quote on it, and I just love it so much. And I have become so dependent on it that I can't sleep without it. And I literally travel with it now. It's turned into like my like comfort. Everyone has seen it. If anyone's ever walked into a hotel room that I've been in, they've seen my blanket literally sprawled out across my bed. So yeah, it's easier. If I'm out somewhere, I'm paying attention to someone else's conversation, or like, ooh, that could be really interesting. What are they talking about? Can I add this in? Or like if I'm at a bar, like it's just too noisy. So it's just better to have my door shut and just be alone.
Do you, like, when you're out doing whatever in life, do you get inspired by certain
writing things down, and I wish that I was better about it. For me, I get, like how I explained when like the hockey player got like thrown against the boards, I get flashes of almost what seems like a clip from a movie reel. And it like takes me like out of the space and into the book, and it literally is ingrained. It almost feels like a memory to me at that point, and that's when I know that those characters are literally up next. Like it's like, oh, okay, once I'm done with this book, I have to go back to this image, and it is very fleeting. I don't get them very often, which I'm very happy about, because then I would have way too many work in progresses at a time. I usually write 2 to 3 at a time, and anything else than that, I wouldn't be able to keep their voices accurate.
Wait, you write 2 to 3 books at a time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're always out of different genres. So I wrote The Hysterics, which is contemporary romance, at the same time that I wrote Stupid Hearts, which is a romantic comedy.
Okay.
So The Hysterics, I was so invested in those characters and their well-being, and like I cried when they cried, or I cried when they were happy. I mean, I just cried the whole time that I was writing that book. And then writing Stupid Hearts, I didn't care about those characters the same way. I love them and they're phenomenal, but they weren't going through like traumatic issues. They didn't have these like crazy things getting thrown at them. They didn't deal with drugs or their little sister being killed in a car accident or having identity crises. They were okay. So I balanced my emotions. So like The Hysterics took everything out of me, and then I went to write Stupid Hearts, and it was like light and funny, and I could be like quirky, and so it kept everything, my emotions in balance, because I literally was a mess when I was writing The Hysterics. No one even wanted to be around me, like for about 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was just so invested.
Which of your characters is the most you?
Fallon Dunbar from The Hysterics.
Wait, what was the question?
She asked which of my characters is the most you.
Oh.
Like,
okay.
who is me? It's Fallon Dunbar. You could argue that Mags from the Crashing series is a lot like me. Physically, she's a lot like me because it's my first book, so it just made sense. I didn't even realize that I was doing that. And it's based in Orlando. They went to UCF, so it was like a lot of my own stuff in there, but I don't think that personality-wise she is me, where my voice is Fallon. Like, fundamentally, to her core, Fallon Dunbar is me. Like, she's my heart. So, I love her a lot. She's important to me.
If you could choose one of your books to become a movie, what's the first one you choose?
Crashing Back Down. Because it's military romance with the like hot guy that comes back from war with PTSD. I mean, it would sell. Like, it would make a good movie. I would prefer if it would be The Hysterics, but it's just not as adaptable to screenplay.
Okay, so you said that Fallon is most like you. If Hysterics was made into a movie, who would play Fallon?
Mila Kunis, if I could pick anyone, because I'm obsessed with her. She's amazing, but she probably wouldn't take the role because it's way too serious, and she's really funny. Yeah, that's what I picked. But she looks like Fallon. Would totally be Fallon. She'd have to pierce her lip for the movie. Yeah, they do have fake jewelry. Kim Kardashian's lip ring. Anyone see that? Oh yeah, it's a thing. Are there any other questions?
Do you have to outline or anything to keep track when you're writing multiple books at the same time?
I really should. I was sitting on the floor at our friend Lori's house watching the Super Bowl, writing Unspeakable, and I looked at Dana and I said, in Unacceptable, did I give a specific character's mother a name? The answer was no, but I didn't know that. I should have had notes for myself. I did start doing that with the Crashing series and the Hysterics. I do have notes for those characters, but then I started writing faster than I could keep up with myself. I wish for the Shots on Goal series that I had from the very beginning. I have notes for Hat Trick. Do not have notes for the rest of it. I wish that I had literally a timeline for these characters because I go back and forth. I jump years and months in between. And the whole point is because characters will be filling up those sections in other books. So I'm working on Playoff Beard right now, which is coming out in June. And that's for Jordan. And Jordan Bates is a character. Jordan Bates is sitting right there. She ended up being a secondary character in Hat Trick, and then she needed her own book. The goalie, but he's married in like the beginning, and like, but no one knows it. I just know it in my head. And then his wife is awful, but no one knows that. And so I have to remember which time frame I'm putting the prologue of the book in to be able to jump it the right amount of years to get him out of that bad relationship and where it needs to set up for the end of this book. And I wish that I had everything like
Yeah, 'cause you know the readers will catch it, right?
Trust me.
Like, wait, that wouldn't happen.
Right. It's like, wait, that's the wrong. Wait, no, that didn't happen yet.
Right?
And like all of those things. So I wish that I had given myself a little bit of a timeline. I've kind of done that when I was writing Low Blow. I kind of did it because Low Blow fills in so many gaps because Hat Trick and Cross Check, those are the first two in the series, they almost mirror each other's timelines. And Cross Check goes a little bit farther past Hat Trick. But Low Blow comes in so much farther in the time space of the characters because Griffin is so young because he's 5 years younger than his brother. So his brother is in his early 20s for the beginning of the series, and now Gavin, who's the captain of the hockey team, he's almost 30, and so I have to like remember that balance, especially with how, because he's the captain of the team, he gets played the most, so I have to remember that his shelf life is coming up. And like all of those things, and these guys that have been in this hockey team, they don't have that long of, so I have to remember that and give them the reality of their situation. They're all starting to talk about, well, when the new guys start coming in, when we start getting rotated out, and that's how it works, and those types of things. So
A lot of retirement parties.
right, definitely.
What advice would you give to people who are looking to start writing and become an author? Since you've been doing it for a while, you've definitely learned a lot.
Don't forget why you started. That's the biggest thing, because I've forgotten a few times why I started writing. Because it literally was my solace when I was having a really bad time. If you write for yourself, you'll never get tired of it, you'll never get bored, you'll never be upset about the money. Once you lose track of all of that, you lose yourself. You lose your voice, you lose your characters, you lose your tense, you lose everything. And it turns into mindless dribble. And that's not fair. I've done that. I've literally sat down and I've written absolute crap. And then I was like, wait, why am I writing this book? It's awful. Oh wait, I'm writing in a formula that doesn't work for me. And that's just, and it happens because you see a formula that works for another author. It works for them. It might sell well, but it's not going to work for you. And if you can't be true to who you are, then there's no point in even trying. And that's when you would quit a job. That's when you would quit if you lost the sight of why you were there. Yeah, the money's great. Not really. Being an author is not glamorous. We are not bankrolling. Like, people think that we make so much, but I mean, we can pay our bills and that's as far as we go half the time. But we don't do it because of that. We do it because we love it. And there's a passion. And that passion is something that we can't lose. Because then there's no point. The readers don't care anymore. And then why would we care? Yes,
You wrote about writing different time periods, centuries old, or...
That That is one thing that I will never do. I will.
Your mom will have to want to read it.
No, my mom's more than welcome to read any book that she wants. That's not the thing. Historical romance scares me because there's so much research involved. Yes, I will research things for my books. I've had to do that, but I usually write about things that I at least have some form of basis for. Writing historical, you cannot mess up. You cannot get a date wrong. You can't get a president wrong. You can't get a politician wrong. You can't get how buildings looked. I mean, it's just, I don't have the patience or time. I've released May is the first month that I have not released since October. I do not have the patience or time to research and give historical romance the attention it deserves, because I wouldn't be able to do it. Are you offering? Maybe. We'll talk about it later.
Next year, Mother's Day gift.
Right? Like, but what, I don't know, it would have to be, I wouldn't be able to do it in some other country, because then I don't want to have to, like, put in, like, weird, hey guys.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Hi. Josh, who's on my cover. And Chelsea and Isabel. But yeah, I don't think that I have the patience for historical romance. I do, if you want to read them, I know a lot of really great authors who, and to speak to you specifically, writes Scotland-based historical romance. If you want them, I have a few authors that do that just for you. Chelsea bought all of her books at one of the signings that she went to. Yeah.
So one of your viewers asked, you said where you like to write at, but when you write, do you like silence or do you like music, or what do you like in your background?
I can write with the TV on. Give me music and I can't concentrate at all. It needs to be dead silence for that. Even, there's certain things that I can have in the background and can't, as far as TV too. I can have anything that's like light and funny, so like stupid comedies like Family Guy or something like that, totally fine, can be in the background. War movies, no way. Screaming, bombs blowing up, my concentration's gone. Crying, I can't handle crying in the background. It's really weird that I know all of these things. But before I moved to Tampa, in my townhouse, my desktop, I didn't even have a laptop at the time, my desktop was in like the office section, and literally it was like a half wall partition, and then it was our living room, and my ex would be watching TV. That's why I can listen to TV, and I would literally, if he like started watching a war movie, I'd be like, change it, I can't, or like I would just be like, all right, I'm done writing, thanks. So it's just certain things like trigger my attention span, and I can block certain things out and can't block other things out.
I'm love right now.
I saw someone's hand go up. Okay.
What's your favorite genre to read?
Oh.
Yourself.
Do you even read?
Do I even read?
that's-
I don't read often. I don't have time. Jessica knows this very firsthand because she sends me books, and I'm like, I'll read them eventually. I'm really sorry. I'll post that I have it on my Kindle and that I'm really excited about it, because I am. I like reading erotic romance is my favorite. But it can't be straight erotica, it has to be erotic romance for me. Contemporary romance or new adult, that works too, but sometimes it's too close to the stuff that I'm writing, and I don't want to ever accidentally pull from someone else's books. So I don't read while I'm writing, and since I've released every month since October, I've been writing every month since October, so I have not been reading.
Who's your favorite author to read?
I don't have one, technically. Jamie McGuire is how I started exploring contemporary romance, new adult romance, and that's when I started writing those short stories, was while I was reading her books. And then Brittany Cherry has been really instrumental, but Brittany Cherry and I published at the same time. We published a month apart, and we had met online and we did everything together. So she and I have been reading each other's books every time before we published, very specifically, just because of that. And she's very different style than me. She writes more young adult style, which is nice because we can give each other outside opinions on our stuff. So, yeah.
With more of the signings being international in the coming years, what's your dream go-to?
I'm actually doing the one that I really wanted to do. I'm doing Dublin for the Love of Books in Dublin.
When is that?
2019.
October.
Okay.
Of
2019.
It's 19, right? Okay, good. I was like,
Yeah.
it's 18. I don't have enough money in my bank account. Yeah, it's October of 2019. Nice. Thank God Dana knew that. So I'm doing For the Love of Books in Dublin. I probably won't do any other event that year. Maybe Wicked if they have it. Are you coming with me? Okay. Amy Briggs will be there as well. That's fine. I'll check extra suitcases.
We are taking donations for first class plane tickets.
Dana and I would really like to. We might start needing to save up all of our Sky Miles to be able to upgrade. Yeah. Remember how I said that we can pay our bills? Signings are expensive. They're not cheap. You had a question, Jessica. Okay.
I had another one too.
Why did you choose the otter as the mascot for
My Rockstar group picked it. So I was writing about a hockey team. I knew that they were going to be in New York. I wanted them to be based off of the Rangers. That's as far as it can go. You cannot have another mascot technically. You have to be very careful about franchise infringement. So I opened it up to my reader group, and I was like, as of right now, it's the New York Stars, which obviously is not a New York team, but it's Dallas Stars, and one of my favorite players is on there, so I was like, it's a good filler word. But I need to fix this. And then I threw out a couple different animals that I was thinking, and then everyone was like, oh my gosh, the otter. And then Jocelyn Pina, she named Ollie. And then she was like, and then I was like, Ollie's my homeboy. And she's like, I want that on a shirt. And so it literally snowballed really fast within my reader group. But it was, the otters. And this is their logo. They have their own logo. Yeah. So
And it's just imaginary.
it's completely fictional. Yeah. I mean,
Not so real.
I talk about my characters like they're real people because in my head they are real people, because being an author is the only socially acceptable form of schizophrenia. So my characters are literally real people to me. I talk about them like that. Dana and I have very fluid conversations about my characters, like what would Gavin be doing right now, those types of things, because it helps me, because they have to be real for the readers to actually see it and feel it. That's my goal. I want you to be, because I see it as a movie reel in my head, I need it to be that way for you. And that's the whole point.
Do you do anything to help you write any emotional scenes? Like you listen to really emotional music, or you just think of bad memories, or any real, any type of happy or sad or any emotion?
I don't. I listen to a lot of music that reminds me of my characters when I'm driving, if I'm writing about specific things. But I don't really, usually I know all of the bad things that are going to happen to my characters well in advance. I'm really mean to them. My characters' backstories are awful. They all come from terrible situations. Most of them have a lot of dead family members or a lot of drug abuse and very random, very tragic things. So I'm really good at breaking their hearts. I'm really good at that. It's the putting them back together And that's what I strive to do in my books, is they're broken when I first have them, and then I have to put them back together.
Have your parents read any of your books?
They've read some. I have a really funny story. And my dad's probably gonna blush. But I have two really funny stories. Both of them involve my father. First one, I had just released Crashing Back Down, which was my first book, and we were heading to New York for a very sad event. My grandfather had passed away. I'm sitting in my airline seat with my mother on my left, my father was on my right, and my father was reading Crashing Back Down. Now, when you write your first book, you know everything about that book, page numbers. You literally could jump in the middle and start telling the story verbatim. And it's not odd for me to sleep on planes. So I pretended to be asleep while I knew that my father was getting towards a sex scene. Oh, and I was dying in the seat, and he's reading, and I just wanted to take the pages and like turn it 5. And be like, you don't need any of these. It's fine. The story will progress. You might be a little confused about maybe some dialogue, but you'll be good. I didn't, and I literally took the coward's way out, and I pretended to be asleep. I don't think he knew that until this very moment. Another moment. We were at just another book signing in South Florida, in Miami. My dad came to show his support, and he sits down at a chair right next to a full rack of my books. The closest book to him was Colt and Serena. Now, I will show you Colt and Serena. My dad is a musician, so you would understand why he would pick this book up. It's a great cover, right? It's very nondescript. I'm going to read you the first line of the blurb. Gay for pay, it's not just a guy thing. I ripped this book out of my father's hands as fast as humanly possible and handed him another book that I knew, at least for the time that he would be there, would be dad appropriate. My readers have now hashtagged not for dads because of those stories. So now if I tell them this book is not for dads, they know what that means. And so those were 2 times that I was very embarrassed. And my dad is such a trooper. I would bring boxes of books in, and my mom would be like, oh, okay, cool books. And I don't care if she reads them, whatever. My dad would be like, oh, which ones can I read? And I'd be like, none of these books are